Hi, this is James Shug with Westpac London's end of day report for Monday, October the 3rd. I'll start by running through the major events of the day. We had the Greek government pass its latest budget, and the cabinet there has approved another 6.6 billion euros worth of austerity measures. These are the ones that involve a lot of public sector workers being laid off, pensioners losing the pension if they're under the age of 55 and so on. So pretty harsh measures. Those ones are yet to receive parliamentary approval. Nevertheless, even with all those measures, the budget deficit for 2012 is now projected to be 6.8% of GDP. It was required to be 6.5% of GDP under the terms of the bailout, the original bailout, and at the moment, of course, the European Central Bank, the IMF and the EU Commission are actually investigating whether or not the sixth tranche of that bailout should be paid. Now the thinking is that it's kind of close enough. I mean, the Greek economy is in much worse shape than had been anticipated when these numbers were decided, but we don't actually get a decision until October the 13th, when EU ministers will meet once again. The EU ministers are actually meeting right now, today and tomorrow, and they're discussing a whole range of things, such as the expansion of the European Financial Stability Fund. Will it be leveraged? Will the ECB be involved in it? How would you handle a default or a debt restructure for Greece? I mean, everything's on the table now. Things that were thought impossible or just inconceivable that they could happen are now clearly being discussed. But we haven't had any hard reports from that meeting yet. On the data front, we had in the US some pretty decent figures actually. Relatively, the the manufacturing ISM survey for September came in at its highest reading in 3 months. I mean, the average reading for the third quarter at 51 is still way down on 56, I think it was, in the second quarter. So there's still clearly a slowdown in the industrial sector taking place, but it was just the September number wasn't quite as weak as expected. And there was quite a jump in construction spending figures as well, due to a bounce in the public spending on residential construction. Really, those US numbers, they weren't enough to turn around what was a pretty negative day in terms of sentiment on equity markets. The main concerns were that Greece isn't meeting its budget targets. Yes, they might get this tranche, but how credible is this whole project going to be if they keep fudging the numbers or keep letting Greece get away with it in terms of further bailout payments? And as I say, there's a lot more discussion going on about a debt restructure. I mean, my personal view, not necessarily yet Westpac's view, is that we probably will see a debt restructure in Greece before the end of this year, possibly announced in early November. We'll get back to that in future reports. Commodity prices, they kept falling sharply today. I'll run through them first actually. Gold's the exception, up 1.8% today. It's at $1,651 an ounce, but crude oil's kept sliding. It's down another 0.75% today at $78.61. Copper prices down 0.5% today, 313 cents a pound. You know, copper prices since September, like in a month, have lost a third of their value. Absolutely tumbled. I mean, just a sign of the weakness that investors are now pricing into the global growth outlook, with China also showing signs of a bit of a wobble, on top of the concerns about the US and Europe, of course. So moving on to equity markets, commodity firms marked down very sharply. That's one of the reasons why the FTSE in London's down 1.3%. It's about 20 to 5 at the moment, so heading into the close, but European markets are still trading. The French market's down 2.2%, the German market down 2.7%, with financial stocks leading the way lower there. In the US, it's been in positive territory, negative territory, sort of a patchy mixed performance today. Temporary support from the ISM survey, but it didn't really last. But currently the Dow's only down 0.1%. The S&P 500 measures down 0.2%. The Dow's at 10,900 exactly as I'm speaking. The Aussie dollar, 96.25 US cents. It actually dipped below 96 cents earlier today, very briefly. Certainly, even at this level, though, it's around the lowest it's been for the year. We haven't seen an Aussie dollar below 96 cents until today this year. And speaking of Australia, a few things to watch for. Of course, we've got the Reserve Bank's board meeting coming up. Westpac's view is they'll be cutting rates by the end of this year, or at the end of this year in December, but we'd like to see some acknowledgement in the statement, and certainly in the minutes in 2 weeks' time, that the bank is coming around to that sort of thinking from their most recent sort of neutral stance on policy. And on the data front, it's building approvals, where we're looking for a 1.5% rise. We get the trade balance for August. We're looking for a 2.5 billion trade surplus, with exports expected to be up particularly strongly. And you guys got the tax forum going on, haven't you, as well? Looking at the whole Australian tax system, except perhaps the biggest part of it, the GST. Okay, on that slightly controversial end note, I'll better escape. Bye.